I want to thank everybody for coming today. We're going to have a good meeting. I am excited about this one. This is the first of hopefully many throughout the coming year, and just teaching you guys some different things you hadn't thought about before. And I'm very excited about it. So let's jump in. A little legal disclaimer first, just so you understand this is not going to be tax and legal advice we're giving you. Check with your own personal representatives on that matter. And so we just wanted to get that out of the way. We got to do our legal disclaimers. So again, my name is Jason Powers. We have Yvonne Burke and Ursula here with us as well. And we're all going to kind of jump in throughout the next hour. I want to try to keep it, we're going to do our best. So we could pack this. We have 4 hours of information. We're going to shove into about 60 minutes. So get your learning caps on. You're going to be drinking from a fire hose, but it'll be good. It'll be good stuff. So we're excited. Let's talk for a second about, you have your dream. Most everybody on here is musicians, or everybody is in the industry to some capacity. And you have your dream, and we dream of making it big if you're just starting out, or we dream of just maintaining our level of the ability to keep rolling out music and people listening to our music, and you want to hear your song on the radio and see the crowd singing the lyrics back to you. And this is what you're born to do. This is what you're excited to do, what you're excited to get into. But as every working musician learns, the music business really isn't always in tune with your dream per se. The music may flow freely, but the money always is ebb and flow. It doesn't always flow as freely as we want it to in the same way. So navigating that financial side of your career and balancing the creativity with this stability, it can really be one of the hardest parts. And that's one of our functions in helping you navigate that a little bit and helping you see some different ways to approach things. We want to find a balance in your career, right? How do we find that balance? If you're not making the money full time in music, you've got a day job or you've got a side hustle, and you want to figure out how do we balance this with the music life, and how do we balance music life with family life even, right? That's an important consideration. How do we balance all these other things that come with music? Okay, do we take some of these low paying or free gigs with paid gigs, or what kind of stuff do we do to continue pushing our music career forward? The big discussion these days, streaming and touring, and where's the balance? How much reliance do we put on these different paths of making money? So our job today is not to teach you how to make money streaming, how to make money touring, those individual things. There are lots of vehicles out there for you like that, lots of resources out there for you in that. Our job is to show you a better way to flow your money. Maybe as you're making money, what's a good way to route the money? Change the flow of the money is what we're going to be talking about. So kind of this fluctuating income, we want to talk about the fluctuating income to expensive projects, the money side of the music business. It can feel like a constant battle, and that's what we're talking about today. We got to prepare for the cycles. Life happens, things go up and down, tours cancel, personal lives change, bands break up, these kinds of things, and things change. And the truth is, most bands don't really stay on top forever. And when the gigs slow down, and many musicians, we find that you find yourselves with little to fall back on too often, and you're scraping together funds for a tour or the next album or family or bills, emergencies, equipment, and so on and so forth. And these are the financial realities the musicians face every day. And I think there comes a point where musicians go, it's time for the change. It's time to do something different. And I love this quote, which I want to share with you, is this quote I heard, and I use it all the time because it's so true, which you'll see. And he says, people change in 4 different seasons. He says, either when they heard enough that they have to, or when they see enough that they're inspired to, or when they learn enough that they want to, or when they receive enough that they're able to. That's John Maxwell. And it's so true. Like when have we reached a point that triggers change? We need to change the way we're doing something. If it's not working, there's that old adage of the definition of insanity, right? Is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. And so maybe just one way to kind of propel yourself forward will be some of the things we show you today. Let's just think differently. Let's make a change. Okay. And I love there's a quote by Nelson Nash, which we'll talk about Nelson Nash off and on throughout the day, is he says the most profitable thing you can do is learn to control your money. And it's so true. And so let's pause there for a second and let's jump in. We got to kind of lay the foundation before we dive into, okay, now what do we do with all this? But we want to lay some foundation. I'm going to hand it over to Yvonne and talk about we're making our money, but what kinds of things do we typically do with our money in general? Okay.
Thanks, Jason. One of the things that I want to do, and I make sure that I can, um, let's see if I can find if this will move. Did you give me
Let's,
request to move the?
yes.
There it is. Where do we put our money? So my part of the presentation is going to be on the known things that we have learned simply from media, from sources of what people believe is the right way to store our cash. And one thing that you're going to be really, I hope, is starting to think about, is there a better way? To start to think about every time you earn a dollar and you deposit that dollar somewhere, what happens to it? And does it make sense? And is it really the most efficient way to create cash flow? Because let's just be honest, right? Cash flow is king. Whoever controls cash flow controls everything. And our job and my goal is for you guys to start thinking about how to increase your cash flow, how to create cash flow income, how to have resources, assets that you can build through your lifetime that will generate more cash flow for you. And I'm going to start by one of the things that, all of us don't really think about or don't want to think about often, but it's tax buckets. And there's really only three places where you can store your money. And they're all revolved around taxation of that dollar. So we have the taxable bucket, which is your everyday, your paycheck. If you invest into any stock with your money, any kind of CDs that you do through a bank, anything that you have to pay the tax first before you get that earning is your taxable bucket. Then we're going to talk about the tax deferred bucket. The tax deferred bucket is where you are going to put in money somewhere over a long period of time, and the tax will be paid when you touch the money, right? You hear a lot of things with tax deferred, and we'll go through each and every one of them here in a minute as the only way to retire. You hear a lot of noise around what a great programs the governments are offering on this tax deferred programs that they put together. And then we're going to talk about the tax-free bucket. What vehicles can you actually accumulate cash where you don't have any tax exposure? They're tax invisible. So let's get started with the taxable bucket. And honestly, Jason, oh, here we go. And here's a couple of examples of vehicles inside of our taxable buckets. Like I said earlier, savings accounts, CDs, money market, dividends, stocks. You pay the tax first. When you put your money in your checking account, when you earn, right, that's an after-tax dollar. We're going to call that dollar non-qualified. That's all I want you to learn today. Anything that's non-qualified is the term that they use in the banking industry, is any dollar that you've already paid a tax on. When you get to a qualified account, and you may hear the word qualified through this presentation, always remember that that refers to money that you have not paid any taxes on. And that includes deferred comps, IRAs, 401ks, SEP IRAs. I mean, the IRA world is one that everyone feels or thinks that they have to have in order to be able to retire. You always hear a lot of financial advisors say things like, oh, if you don't, you have to make sure that you have an IRA or a 401k. You get to a job and that's one of the benefits that they say, oh, we offer a 401k. What a great employer are we? But is it? And we're going to have a little study later of what happens when you put money in a tax deferred bucket and how the lack of access to that dollar, it actually hurts you instead of help you. And we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to look at the tax-free bucket. And I want you to notice that the vehicles get smaller and smaller, right? In the tax-free bucket, we really only have three true instruments that are tax-free. And by the way, one can argue, oops, I went too far. One can argue, I can go
Gotcha.
back now. Can you go back? One can argue that a Roth IRA, right, which comes from a conversion from an IRA, you still have to pay the taxes up front for the first 4 years and then it becomes tax-free. So it's an iffy vehicle. A municipal bond is simply a tax-free instrument if you were to invest in your local municipal bond. For example, here in Las Vegas, I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. We're building a new baseball field for the A's, who are, we take everyone else's teams for California. Now we're bringing the A's here. And so they did a municipal bond. They raised dollars to be able to build a new stadium. So bondholders will always get paid, and as long as it's with a municipal bond, that will be a tax-free. And then we have cash value life insurance. Permanent whole life cash value is also a tax-free environment, and we're going to kind of hit on that as well. Any other comments, Jason or Ursula, you guys want to talk about here that you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, let's start with what happens to our money. Let's first look at the taxable bucket, and that is money that goes into your bank account. You work all day long, you're sitting there, and now you get paid. That dollar comes in and you deposit that money into your banks. And I'm going to use an example from Bank of America. By the way, the information that I'm going to share with you came from something called the Bauer Report. And the Bauer Report is an institution that measures all of the banks. You can go online and you can go to bauerreport.com and you can get the financial information on any bank in the United States of America. Why is that important? Because it's important for you to know what banks do with your money. Have you ever thought about, geez, I deposit the money, but is that money really sitting there? And I'm going to give you a very quick example, personal example, because even after doing this, by the way, I've been doing this since 1991, a lot of years, you kind of forget, right, that your available balance in your account does not equate to the amount of money that you can actually use. And it's almost like a farce. Unfortunately, my sister lost her husband at an early age. I flew home to Philadelphia. I went to the funeral home. I wanted to help her with the cost of the funeral until her, life insurance money came in. And I was able to look at my bank account and see that I had $17,000 available to withdraw available. So I wanted to give the deposit for the funeral, except that my card got declined because I only had a $7,500 spending limit. And I got reminded that why, if I show a balance of $17,000, I don't have access to a $17,000 cash. And I'm going to show you why, right? Everything begins with the deposit. Everything begins with you putting the dollar into the bank. The bank will then, as the banker, will take the money that you deposit and it will lend it to other people. So I deposit my money. They give me a spending limit of 7,500 or whatever the number is. That's an individual thing. And then they take the rest and they're going to lend it, to people that are the borrowers, auto loans, credit cards, whatever that financial institution is doing. And then they're going to charge an interest for the use of my money. If you learn nothing today, I hope you learn that the idea around creating a cash flowing asset is using other people's money. That's a banking function. That's the reality. The reality is that the only way that banks lend money is receiving money. So if you look at this example in Bank of America, there was and I forget the year, I think I don't know, whatever year this was, 2017. It's the same, it's every bank, it's the same situation. Let's say that they received $900 billion in deposits. Okay. They paid out to the savers, the people that deposit about $3.1 billion in interest, CDs, money market accounts, right? And you're like, okay, that's not too bad. But then you realize that they earned $49.9 billion in profit using your dollars to lend to other people, right? If you really do the math and you look at the equation, you see that they paid out 0.34% to the savers and they kept 5.5%. This is why financial institutions are the richest institutions in America. This is why they want you to put your money through bank vehicles. There are banks that offer IRAs. There's banks that offer bank products, credit cards, um, auto loans, mortgages. Anything, every single time that you're borrowing from a bank or a financial institution, you are literally giving your money or you're borrowing someone else's cash, not the bank's cash. The bank has their investments and the bank has their assets creating money. They're just using your dollars in order to create more profit. And Mr. Nelson Nash and Jason kind of talked about Mr. Nash before, and this is exactly the kind of study that he did, right? And it's part of being Austrian economics, really, is how do I can I become the banker? How can I create a system where instead of me having to go and buy my music equipment or fund my tour, do whatever you want to do in your career, where maybe I can finance my own expenses instead of using the banks and having them make all the money on the interest that they're earning, right, from using my dollars. Because when you look at this equation, what you'll see is what? It's a 16-to-1 ratio. It's a 1,600% spread. Bank of America was killing it this year in their lending, right? So what we hope that you walk out of here today, I hope a little bit mad because I used to be a regular financial advisor for many years. I used to sell investments and VULs and just all kinds of, IRAs and that kind of those products. And then after I met Mr. Nash and I kind of understood the banking function, I understood who controls the equation here and learning a better way, then you realize, what, just because everybody says it's okay doesn't mean it is. Just because everybody does it that way doesn't make it right. Just because you follow whatever the crowd tells you. And there's so much noise in the media between buy term, invested difference, 401k is the only way there's just so much noise. But then when you really look at the basics and you look at who controls the money and who earns the money and you understand the process, you see that if I'm going to work so hard for my dollar, why would I want to give it to someone else to earn dollars? I want to earn as much money, my own money. Okay. Jason or Ursula, if you guys want to add something before I go into the stock market discussion, this is really something as basic that I wanted to explain as basic as possibly can. The banks use other people's money to make earnings.
And we're constantly marketed, to borrow.
Of course. I mean, I
Right.
remember you guys when I went to Penn State University, and this was, by the way, I'm going to date myself. This is 1989, right? How many years ago? This is the same equation as my daughter that just graduated just last year from USC. We went to her graduation, and on her career fair the day after, there were 17 credit card, American Express, Citibank, Visa. There were more credit card booths on this career fair than there were employment. Saying these words, you have to create credit if you ever want to buy something. Your credit score, you have to start building it because how are you going to ever be able to buy something if you don't have a good credit score? Credit score, credit score. They're literally programming you from the moment you start earning an income to be a slave of banks, right? They're programming you to have to use their situation, to have to use their instrument, but they don't tell you, right? They don't tell you that when they say to you, well, we're going to pay you, a 1% or 2%, that they're making all that money, right? Jason, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think it's just a good understanding of what's really happening with our money.
Yeah,
I'm putting my money into the banking system, and then we could have a whole nother 30-minute conversation about
yeah, yeah.
this,
And by the
how
way,
they
this is
break
a
that
very
money up. Yeah,
Yeah, this is a very high level overview, right? So now let's
yeah.
talk about, okay, so maybe I think about investments. I hear a lot of people going to the stock market, doing these things. Let's go find out what happens when you put $1 in the stock market. Okay. And by the way, if anybody has a question or anything, feel free to ask. We'll have some Q&A questions later on. So what is really happening in the stock market? And I want you to understand two terms when you're thinking about the stock market. And if you do have some investments, if you do have an IRA, if you do have a 401k, feel free to do a calculation when I get done with this so that you will figure out your number as well. And it's very simple. It's average rate of return versus actual rate of return. Every single time that you're looking at CNN, you're looking at Fox Business, you're looking at anything talking about investments, they're talking about the average rate of return of the investment vehicle, whether it's a stock, whatever it is. And it's a very big difference between an average and an actual. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'll start with this question. Would you like a 25% rate of return on your investments? And I know that all of you, I mean, I can unmute all of you and you guys are going to say, of course you would. Who wouldn't want to have a 25% rate of return investment? So let me show you what that would look like in order to achieve a 25% rate of return. We have year one, you earn 100%. So whatever money you put in there, you're doubling it. You're killing it in this investment. Year two, because the market goes up and down, not so great. Now we're at 50%. Year three, you went back and got 100% on that investment again. Year four, you're back down. So if you add these four numbers and you divide by the number four, the average rate of return of this investment is 25%. So as an advisor, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to say, look, I have a great investment for you. I know it fluctuates, but look, the average is 25%. Would you like to put some dollars in there? And you're going to say, yes, yes, I would. Because it's a great rate of return. Now, in your 401ks, in your IRAs, in any other thing that you have from the market, you will get a rate of return from your portfolio, which will be a what? An average rate of return. What is done all the years divided by the number of years, right? Now let's talk about actual. Because in order for it to become actual, you actually have to put a dollar into the system. It's not a percentage, that's average, right? We're actually going to put a dollar. And we're going to start the exact same formula. We're going to start with $1,000. And we're going to say, okay, year one, if you remember, it was 100%. So we doubled it. It's at 2,000. Year two, I lost 50% of my value. So I'm back to 1,000. At year three is 100% again, 2,000. At year four, we're going back down to 50. So it's 1,000. If you add all this, your ending balance is 1,000. But what happened to the 25%? Why isn't it 1,050?
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. People are like, I don't understand. My rate of return shows so good, but yet the actual balance doesn't show as much of a growth. And I'm going to show you the things that move average versus actual. What things inside, when the minute that you put a dollar, does it start changing what the rate of return is? And when you're investing, and by the way, this is not an and or an or, it's an investment vehicle inside of your portfolio. Important, of course it is, right? It's just understanding how they move. It's understanding which vehicle and how is the best way to invest so that you can get a better actual rate of return versus average rate of return, right? Any thoughts on this, you guys, before I go to the next one?
Well, no, this is just great awareness, difference between the two terms. That's for sure.
Yeah, and when you actually learn this, you're like, oh, duh. Like it becomes so
Mhm.
like, why didn't anybody ever? I mean, I was like, again, I was selling, right? But even when I learned this, I was just like, why didn't I ever think about the difference between an actual rate of return and, a percentage number versus an
Mhm.
actual number? So let's look at an example. In this example, we're going to look at these different investment markets, right? We're going to look at the S&P 500 with dividends over a 20-year period between the year 2005 and 2024. And again, this is the average rate of return over a 20-year period was 11.79. And you'll see they had years, the red ones are, years that were minus, of course, 2008, big loss. But on an average, it really averaged 11.79. And a lot of investors feel that that's a really great average rate of return. They're confident that if they put their money into the S&P 500, that over a 20-year period, their money will grow by 11.79, right? And what would that look like? Let's separate this. And now we're going to just put in the 11.79, no money, only numbers. Now let's add a dollar. Let's start adding a dollar to see what's the difference between the average rate of return at the top. You'll see the big yellow circle versus the actual net rate of return. We are going to put in, and by the way, It could be I'm using $100,000 as an example, but it could be 10,000, it could be 20,000, it could be $1. It doesn't matter. It's the exact same equation. You add $100,000 one time to your, let's just call this whatever, 401k, and now you let it sit there over a 20-year period. And based on as soon as you add money, you will see that the average rate of return is not really 11.79, it's 10.30. Right? Remember when we did the original the calculation, one showed that it should have been 25% of return, the other one shows 0. Okay, so we lost a little bit, but based on this discussion, and I'm talking to your 401k people at work, hey, this is really great because I am going to put $100,000 year one, and 20 years later, I'm going to have 710,484, right? Basically a 10.30 rate of return. And you're excited. Now, here's what they don't tell you, okay? Or you don't think about. First, you have to deduct some fees. Nobody works for free in the investment world. Every single mutual fund, every single stock, there's always going to be, every single financial is going to carry a fee that has to be paid to manage your money. So once you put in the fee, you will notice that the actual rate of return went to 8.65%. Right? Now you put in $100,000 year one, and in year 20, you're down to 525, 145. And you're like, oh gosh. Okay, still pretty good, right? Now we're going to go to the next one. Now we have to add inflation and taxes. Oh my gosh, what does that mean? Now it means that I have to put a 4% inflation, which is very reasonable, by the way, and I put a 22% tax bracket, which is kind of an average. Now $100,000 account over a 20-year period grew to 138,343, 1.64 rate of return. Right? Not so exciting. But nobody tells you this because you thought you were getting 11.79.
Right.
And by the way, this is not even taking consideration a 10% penalty if you take it before 59 and a half or 62 and a half now, because you can't, the money's locked. If you touch it before retirement age, then you get penalized on that. So the financial institution takes your 100,000, they're earning all kinds of money on it because I just told you they're using your money to lend it to other people. They're giving you some type of return based on the market, and you're paying inflation and taxes on top of that. So now you have earned $38,000 on that $100,000, and you lost the ability to use that dollar over a 20-year period. Is that helping? In the meantime, you're living and struggling day to day. You are in probably credit card debt. You're trying to manage cash flow while this money's sitting there untouchable. The inability to have access to that dollar makes this even worse than just the average versus actual. Right? Any other thoughts? I mean, this is just when you really start thinking about the numbers, it just like there's got to be a better way. And by the way, some people are like, well, I don't have $100,000. I'm going to go ahead and I want to put a 5,000 a year. I'm going to just save $5,000 a year for 20 years. It's the same 100,000. And you'll notice that you'll get a little bit better rate of return. You see 3.48, but you'll have less money. And why? Because you have less money that's earning. It's taking longer to compound all this money to earn more. So it gives you the appearance of a better actual rate of return, but even less money, right? It's a formula that, and by the way, most people find this out at retirement. When you're getting ready to retire, and people say that to me all the time when I meet with them. Oh, I have $1 million in my 401k, but you really don't. What you really have, right, Ursula? It's more like 700,000 at best, because you got to pay taxes
Minus taxes, fees, and inflation.
and inflation. So, it is an exercise of understanding and knowing how the vehicles work, so that you can make better decisions with what you want to do with your money. Right? But if you don't know, well, you don't know, then how are you going to be able to make that decision? Okay. Any questions so far? Because at the end of the day, like Jason's going to move into, what is the thing? We are constantly giving our money, our control of our money away. You give it to a bank, they lend it to other people. You put it in a 401k, it's tied up. So there's got to be a better way. So Jason, if you want to take it from here.
Yeah, I think it's just that it's understanding, we talk about some of this stuff and not all of it is of interest. Let's say when I was first learning about these things, I'm like, oh, how boring, man, retirement accounts and taxes and inflation and da 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 da, right? But understanding, look, this is what we're told to do with our money in general. We're told to, like Yvonne talked about, right? I remember that's so funny you talked about that getting out of college. I remember sitting there, walking down the sidewalk, looking at these booths and credit card, credit card, credit card. Did I get one? Heck yeah, I got one.
Me too.
Same, same
You
here.
know, and I remember those days, and we think, okay, we got to build up credit, right? But what would life be like if we didn't have to rely on that credit score? What would life be like if we didn't have to rely on that?
And
We
by the
didn't
way,
have to rely
Jason,
on it.
they gave me a $5,000 credit card in 1989. You know how much money that was? And
Yeah.
in within 6 months, how much money do you think I owed on the credit card?
Oh, yeah.
$5,000.
That's right.
But
That's
nobody
right.
ever reminded me or told me that I had to pay it back. I thought making the minimum payment would be enough.
Sure.
Mhm.
Like that's how controlled we are with the information that we're given.
Yeah. And even in, so cars, colleges, credit cards, we say we finance everything we do in life. And the qualified money, like Yvonne talked about, we lock our money up. We want to put money away because we desire to plan for retirement. We desire to plan for the future, and we don't know what we don't know. And so we go with what the herd is told to do, so to speak, right? And so we put our money into vehicles that may not be in our best interest, or let's say it's not all bad. Let's say, and we put all of our money in there and we have no other resource because now we put all our money in here and it's locked up till we're 60, you know, and we're going to get penalized for touching it early. And we're trying to build the music career. And now I've got all this money tied up and that's all fine and well, but it doesn't help me for my career now.
Mhm.
How else do we give up control of our money in the music business? Labels, labels. I'm not going to get on a tangent today on labels, but that is a way. You have no control over the money at that point. You lose most control depending on your situation. So we lock it up. So it's time to think differently, right? It's time for that change. See, just like we said, traditional thinking assumes we got to rely on banks and debt and labels and what have you, and we give up this control that we had. And so what we're going to talk about from here forward, we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about how do we reposition our money into something that we control, that we have more control over, that we can do something with it, and enter this term called the infinite banking concept, which is what can put you in control. You see, I think when it comes to musicians, what every musician wants to achieve, okay, steady cash flow, reliable income streams that sustain your career and lifestyle. How do we do that? Okay, we'll get a side hustle, or maybe we've got our day job and pursuing the music career. We just want some steady cash flow along the way. We want access to our capital. If we're putting money away for the tour or the album or whatever, we need access to it, don't we? We don't want to put it away and then get penalized for accessing it. Oh, I need to buy that new piece of equipment now. It's 10% penalty. That's a bummer. Or whatever, right? So we want quick and easy access to the funds. We want protection against slow times because the careers ebb and flow. They just do. And so we want to protect our money a little bit against the slow times, maybe a hedge, if we would call it, against those slow times. And we want control. We need the ability to control the flow and use of our money. If you're making money, if you bust your butt and you're out there making money in the music business, or busting your butt on a side job and putting that money away so that you can record the album, so that you can buy the next equipment, so that, go on tour, whatever it is, you want control of that money, don't you? I think you do. And that's where we come in, enter this infinite banking concept. We put this up here. If you'll read it, read it. Please get the book. It's on Amazon. This QR code just goes to Amazon. And read this book. It's by Nelson Nash, Becoming Your Own Banker. It is the source, if you will, of the infinite banking concept. It's only like a 92-page book. It's not that big. It's a lot thinner than it looks in the picture, actually. I have a copy somewhere. I have it up over here on the shelf somewhere. But it's a great place to start and learn why we're talking about, oh, we want to control our money. Why do we care? Well, there's a lot of reasons, which again, if we do a 2-hour program today, we could get into it more, but we want to control the money. Okay. And the infinite banking concept is really a process, right? It's a process. It's not like a product, like use this, like Yvonne's talked about different investment vehicles and mutuals and different taxable buckets. Where is the money going? The concept itself is about controlling the banking function in your life. It's about how do we control that lever a little bit better. It really is about guarantees. It's about safety. It's about access to your money. Okay. With me so far?
All
All right. I'm going to jump in. So, what vehicle can we use to control this, to kind of utilize this concept? Well, I mean, there's savings. Sure, we could just put our money in cash. You could get real simple. Let's put it in cash and put it under the mattress. Now we have control of our money. Well, sure you do. Except it's not growing anywhere. It's not doing anything for you except sitting there until you need it. And then when it's gone, it's gone. You've got to refill the pot. All right. But it's a simplistic example. Okay. I want to show you a vehicle today that is best for utilizing the infinite banking concept. And that is how we would describe it as properly structured, dividend paying whole life insurance from a mutual carrier. Now, I get wordy about it because I'm particular about it. And if you're like me, when I first heard about this, I'm like, oh, what? What? I never even heard of any of these words before. Mutual carriers and insurance, whole life insurance. And I thought insurance was insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So again, for sake of time, we're not going to drill down on each component of it, but it is a very particularly structured whole life insurance policy that is designed for utilizing growth inside that you can then access throughout your life. Okay. I'm gonna back up actually. So it's properly structured. Okay. It is whole life. You've heard of term insurance and index universal life and variable universal life and whole life. And so for today's conversation, we're talking specifically about whole life insurance. And there's different types of carriers you can get it from. We're talking specifically at mutual carriers. It has a purpose. Okay. So I want to set up another call sometime with you and let's drill down on these different components. But for sake of time today, we're going to move on. So different benefits. Let me see where we're at here. I'm going to go, yeah, let's do this. Okay. Whole life insurance has so many different components to it that I want to talk about a lot of them. We're talking about putting your money into a vehicle that you control. All right. If you put your money into something, wouldn't you want your savings, let's call it your savings, wouldn't you want it to be private, right? Yours and liquid, something you can get to right away. Wouldn't
When
it
you
be
need it,
nice
when
if
you
it,
want it, yep.
yeah, wouldn't it be nice if you can get it to grow uninterrupted? Like, meaning not the interruption, the growth of that money is not interrupted constantly by something, market declines or you tapping into it or things like this. It'd be awesome if you could put your money into something that grows just uninterrupted and guaranteed. You know pretty much what it's going to do. Oh, income tax free growth. We won't want to. If we can do tax free anything, we're like, sign me up, right? If I can, you know, uh, postpone my tax calculation. We think we want to, although generally speaking, I say pay your taxes now, not 20 years from now, because you don't know what the tax rate's going to be 20 years from now. Why would you postpone it that far down the road? And that's what we do with qualified accounts, your retirement accounts. We're postponing that tax calculation for down the road. We're kicking the can down the road and hoping that they don't tax us to death when it's time for us to access our own money. All right. So again, income tax regrowth. I would love for my money to do that. I would love for it to be a vehicle that I don't have limited contribution amounts to. I don't want it to be market correlated. What does that mean? It means if I have my money in here and the markets are declining, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect my money. So non-market correlated means it doesn't matter what the markets are doing. It's going to do what this is designed to do. It has no affiliation with outside markets. If I could borrow against this pot of money, it would be an unstructured loan. Wouldn't that be great? I'd love it. You know, loans not tied to my credit. I would love to be tax invisible. I would love to be able to use it now and even use it to retire later, meaning a dual purpose, right? Not just for retirement, not just for now. What if I can use it throughout my life and then also use it to supplement or be my retirement? That'd be great. And plus, above and beyond all of that, leave a wealth transfer at the end to it. Okay. So this is only some of the benefits of properly structured dividend paying whole life insurance. Okay. Only some. Now, again, we could spend a whole nother hour, right, Ursula, talking about
Yeah.
what drilling
Yes.
down on these and different components of it. But here, now you've stuck with me this far. So let's dive into a couple of case studies. Okay. Again, so we're just talking about, hey, what if we just change the way we think, change the flow of our money and do something different rather than at least know that we can do something different. Maybe you still choose not to change anything, but I at least want you to know you have options. You're not stuck with just these two or three or four options in life with what to do with your money. Okay. And so imagine a vehicle that, which we're going to show you, I'm going to show you two case studies. A vehicle that we're just changing the flow of the money. We're just saying, let's put some money through this vehicle. And then what does that do for us? What can we do with it along the way? Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple of case studies. This one, imagine there's a four-piece rock band and they got a 25 stop run and they've got some costs up front. All right. They need 60 grand up front costs, tour bus, gas, travel, crew wages and merch and deposits and so on and so forth. Okay. Slice it however you want. All right. So in this example, I'm not going to camp on it, but one of the options of that 60 is your label advance. Okay. It's just an option for those who are signed. Okay, label advance 60,000 or 100,000 or whatever they're going to give you. Or let's say you've got that same 60 sitting inside of a policy. So I just want to contrast the two just to give you some context. All right. So label in advance, and I'm not going to sit here and just badmouth labels all day. But as we know, and I don't want to unpack this, I actually have a ebook you guys can read that unpacks this a little bit more. But if you were to borrow 60,000 from a label, get the label in advance, maybe if it's a 360 deal, 15% royalty share, your repayment takes a long, long, long time. It can be very, very expensive. Okay. You can end up having to do 400,000 in sales to pay back the 60, which sounds ludicrous when you start doing the math. Okay. But your end cost could be an easy, what we got 60,000 recouped from royalties and 10,000 in tour profits that they're going to get, right? They're keeping along the way and you're getting a cut and a cut and a cut and a cut and a cut. And every time you get a cut, it pays towards the 60. And then eventually you might zero that out. Okay. And the label profits like 340K plus, and you ain't earned nothing yet. You're just trying to pay this 60 back. Okay, it happens. And again, I don't want to unpack. I got an ebook you can read that'll unpack these numbers a little bit more. But what if instead you had this money inside of a policy? Now, I want to break this down. I'm going to show you some numbers. If you're on a cell phone, I apologize. You might have to pinch and zoom a little bit so you can see it. But I want to break this down for you. There's a lot of numbers here. We're only going to worry about the middle row of numbers, okay? So we have our, let's call it orange. It probably looks orange for you. The orange numbers and the purple numbers in the middle. The orange numbers is this guy in the band. He was putting 10,000 a year through his properly structured whole life insurance policy. Okay. So he's funding his, let's call it banking system. He's funding his banking system each year with $10,000. He's not losing, he's not parking 10,000 he can't touch. Okay. I want to make that clear. I'll explain that in a sec a little bit more. But let's say he had been doing it. He prepared, there will come a time I'm going to need a good heavy chunk of money. And so he had been doing this several years. And right where this red square is, you'll see he's got about 69,000. The purple is his cumulative cash flow that he can, his cash value, sorry, that he can access. He can borrow against this cash value. Okay. So I think what I didn't describe is as when in a whole life insurance policy, as you're funding it, there's what's called a cash value component to it. And that cash value you can borrow against. The life insurance company is saying, hey, yeah, this pot of money, this is a portion of your death benefit, will allow you to access throughout your life. Okay. Will allow you to access it. Matter of fact, we're not even going to tell you what you need to do with it. You can borrow against it. You can do it whatever you want with it.
Mhm.
Okay. And matter of fact, you let us know when you're ready to pay it back. And then you can pay it back. Okay, so unstructured loan, you're borrowing against this pot of money and you pay it back at will. Okay, it's not free money. You don't just take it and never pay it back ever, ever, ever. It's not a wise idea. The idea is to put your money into a banking system, a system that you control. So if I could be the banker instead of going to the bank, wouldn't I want to position myself like that? All right. So the cash value is what's growing inside of the policy, and the cash value is what we're going to borrow against. Okay. So where the red square is, he's got 69,000 in cash value. He's put 70 in, but he has access to almost 100% of it at this point. Okay. Now he's going to pull the 60 out and pay for the tour. And it's going to cost him, in this case, it'll cost him 5%. It's like an interest only loan. The insurance company is going to say, yes, we're going to loan you this money. Yes, it's unstructured. We are going to charge you 5%. Okay. Today, right now, this year, you can borrow against the policies. They have a 4% fixed. So you borrow, people getting policies today are borrowing at 4% for the whole rest of their life, which is phenomenal because we will never see those interest rates outside again. Okay.
And Jason, can I just add one thing here? I wanted to point out that you're using other people's money, right? You're using just like the banks, the insurance company's money, not your own. I just want to make sure that people realize that their money stays in the policy. You're just borrowing against the value of it, just like a bank does.
Yes, right, right. And they're going to give you access to this pot of money throughout life, right? It's growing and growing and growing and growing. So he's going to borrow 60. He's going to take care of the tour. All right. And then they'll pay it back through ticket sales, merch sales, etc. And if things go upside down and they can't pay it back right away, guess what? It was an unstructured loan anyway. They can pay it back over time. Slow down. Okay. But the point I want to make is even along the way, he was accumulating cash value inside of the policy. It's not just sitting there. All these years he's building up. It just so happened that that year he needed 60 and he had almost 70 in there anyway. Along the way, he can be borrowing against it and using it for other things. You need some new equipment. You need to upgrade the equipment. You need to pay for merch. You got to pay for merch up front. Things like this. You got to pay for the website, right? You got to pay. So different things you've got to pay for throughout your life. And he could be 2 years in. You see at age 37, I could get let's see if I can get this highlighter working. I don't know, yellow is really hard to see. But he could be 2 years in and he's got 16, 17,000 in there and needs some equipment, upgrade the equipment. He said, okay, well, I would have put it on a credit card and then paid that credit card $200 a month for the next whatever. Well, instead of doing that, I'm going to borrow against my policy and I'll pay myself $200 a month back so I can refill that pot. So we always say, be an honest banker. You wouldn't steal from somebody else when you borrow money, so don't steal from yourself and never pay yourself back. If you borrow against your policy, have a plan to pay it back, even if it's a delayed plan. Okay. So he can be utilizing it along the way. Borrow, pay back, borrow, pay back, borrow, pay back. And then it's time he needed this 60 for the tour and so on and so forth. So you'll see the growth of the policy over time. On average, the way we structure these, somewhere between years 2 and 4, the cash value is growing more than the premiums being paid in. And then somewhere between years 6 and 10, depending on how we structure it, the cash value catches up for the first year or two and it exceeds the outlay. So you can see here in the second red box, he's got 94,000 in cash value, 94 and change. Okay, and then on up. Let's just fast forward, right? If we look down the road for him throughout his life, look at age 65 to the left, that far right box. Age 65, he put 149 and change in premiums throughout his entire life. And he built up 327,000 in cash value. He had access to that cash value, that growing cash value along the way throughout his entire life. Borrow, pay back, borrow, pay back, borrow, pay back. Matter of fact, now you know that you can see a real visible spread there, about $178,000 spread or gain inside the policy, if you will, which is not taxable income to you because it's inside the policy, and you will access them as policy loans, and the IRS is not taxed on loans. Okay. And onward. Okay, I'm going to spin back to that. I'm not going to camp on the retirement side, but I just want to show you the difference, right? The policy loan side, you pay it back on the band schedule. That 5%, 3,000 throughout the whole year, versus I got to do 400,000 in sales just to pay back the 60. It cost me 3,000, and I had an unstructured loan. So if I paid it back in a year, that's 63,000. Okay, and you keep all the rest of the profits. How's that? That's an okay deal. And this cash value will continue to grow throughout your entire life. Remember, I talked about uninterrupted growth earlier for a minute. When I borrowed against the policy, the cash value continues to grow inside of the policy as if that money never left. It's uninterrupted compounding growth. You cannot interrupt the growth of that policy, okay? So just the big picture view, really, you've changed how they thought about the finances. We talk about this, change the way you think about your finances. It doesn't have to happen one way. And by controlling this capital, what else can we do, right? We can invest in ourselves and our music without sacrificing future earnings. Okay? We haven't compromised hundreds of thousands of future potential dollars in doing so. And we haven't spent years trying to recoup it. Okay? And every year, that cash value grows stronger. You can continue funding your music. You can continue buying equipment as needed. And now you are back in control. Okay? You with me?
Oh, yeah.
Let me do one more case study. Both of these examples, I don't want you to get caught up on the number of zeros inside of the policy. Don't get caught up on, oh, I would never be able to afford this, or, oh, that's all you have to put, I have both ends of the spectrum, right? If you're like, oh, 10,000, that sounds impossible. Well, let's talk. We'll find a plan that works for you. I have yet to ever sit with somebody who said, gosh, I wish I would have waited to start a policy.
Never.
And Ursula, Yvonne, same. I venture to say that has never happened. Oh, I wish I would have waited longer. It's always, gosh, I wish I would have started this. I wish I would have known about this 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I wish I would have started this sooner. Why? Because the benefit. So we say now is always a good time. When's the best time to plant a tree? Well, 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Right? When? Today. Today's the second best time to plant a tree. But anyway, I don't want you to get caught up on the number of zeros. So this is a case study I want to show you. This is a drummer. He wants to transition into retirement. The backstory, he joined a band at age 25. By 30, they were nationally touring and rocking and rolling and making big bucks. Okay. By 35, he got into infinite banking. And so he was pulling in the money at that time, riding the wave, decided I'm going to start funding this policy pretty heavy right now while I can, because we know this, they're not the odds of riding that wave for the next 30 years are minimal, right? They're stacked against you because there's so many musicians out there. Times change, the scene changed, the types of music change, and so how can we take advantage of now? And so in his case, at 35, he wanted to kickstart a policy. By 55, it was about starting a production company, and then by the numbers, retire, get into semi-retirement by 65. So same graph we're going to look at. I just want to show you higher dollars, the potential for higher dollars even, and what it can do. And I say it again, I just said it, but we've got people doing a couple $100 a month. We've got people doing several 100,000 a year and everything in between. Do not get caught up on the number of zeros. I want you to understand the principles of how it's growing, why it's growing, what it's doing, what it can do for you by you changing the flow of your money, putting yourself in control of the dollars, even if it's only a few dollars now. And then you build on that over time. You understand? So in his case, he was going to start putting 100,000 a year in as long as he could. Okay. Why does that matter? Because fast forward again, the orange number was his cumulative premiums he's paid throughout his entire life. The red number in that box along the way, along that graph, is his cumulative cash value each year. All right. So I'm going to fast forward here for sake of time and just go straight over to age 55. I want you to look at this. By age 55, he put a cumulative 1.3 million in throughout his entire life. He had been borrowing and paying back throughout his entire life, funding things. He has a family, taking care of family during the slow times. If he's off tour, not making any active revenue, he can tap into this and then backfill it when they pick tour back up. Okay, so you tap into this. It's his safety net. It fills in the gaps for the slow times along the way. All right. And so by the time he's 55, he's got 2.1 million in cash value built up. How much did he just spend? He did 1.3 million cumulative throughout his entire life. Well, that's what, $800,000 difference? He's not going to get slapped with a big tax bill because he will always access this money as a policy loan. And the IRS does not tax on loans, mind you. So he's got this vehicle he's been building up throughout his entire life. He's been accessing it, borrow, pay back throughout his entire life. He has control over it. He gets to choose what he's going to do with that money. So here, with the $2 million, he starts his own production company. He doesn't even need $2 million, but he can launch his own production company from there. And by 65, he's got 3.7 million built up in there. Look at from 55 to 65, he paid 300,000 in premiums in 10 years, and his policy grew from 2.1 million to 3.7. How's that for retirement? In his case, that sets him up for a $200,000 a year income tax-free retirement because of the way he's done it. How's that? That's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
So he set up his own, we'll call it private family banking system, funded it, accessed it along the way, used it to make money, save money, help his family, be a safety net, sell what he's doing. He used it to fund his production company, used it to fund retirement. It does a lot of things for you. So he banked his peak years. and I just said all this, right? It's so versatile. Okay. So I just want to, those are the two examples. We've got tons of them, tons of examples. There is no one size fits all approach. There just isn't. I wish there was. There's not. So don't get caught up on, oh, I could never do something like this. I want you to talk to Ursula or Yvonne or myself or whoever invited you today and go, what can I do? It doesn't have to, if you're an individual, maybe you have a business. This can apply within business, this can apply within nonprofits, this can apply within so many different scenarios. And our job is to help you kind of unpack that and navigate that and figure out, what can you do? What can you do? Okay. A lot of people, I put this in here because I hear it every day. I need to do this one day. I need to do this one day. Okay. Make today day one. Make today day one. And let's look at it. We're not, the three of us on here, we're not here to sell you a product, right? I'm not here to just convince you to buy something. That's not our job. Our job is to help you move forward and grow in what you're doing. Our job is to walk alongside you and go, let's help you do this. We're your cheerleaders, right? We're your coaches and cheerleaders, and your maybe you could call it your financial tour manager, so to speak, right? We're gonna help you navigate the big picture, right? Just like I talked about in the beginning. I'm not here to tell you how to do your streaming. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your merch. I'm here to tell you the big picture. What do we do with our money? How can we change the flow of our money? And will it help? Will it help? Reach out to us,
Yeah.
guys. We're gonna stop for questions. Ursula, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was, yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but
Okay.
there wasn't
I wanted
anything.
I wanted to add one more thing, right? A banking system that helps you with your music business is great. You can create a banking system for college funding for your children. You can create a banking system for retirement. You can create a banking system to start a finance company, to start real estate investments. It is endless what you can do and
Right.
how you can do different things with the different way of putting the money. So it can grow with you. It can help you in whatever business you're in. But most importantly, it's private and it is controlled. And I think I said this at the beginning, right? That who controls cash flow is king. This is you being the king of your banking system. So,
Yeah.
or queen. Yeah.
It is this infinite amount of possibilities, hence the infinite banking concept, right?
Mhm.
There's so much you can do with it. You guys can reach out. You see our QR codes if you got your phones on. I'm going to give you a link here in just a second to get that free
Yeah.
ebook again that I talked about earlier. But again,
And
reach out.
questions. If anyone has questions.
Yeah. Any questions, feel free to unmute or let's see if I can get the chat pulled up. Feel free to drop it in chat as well. And we went really fast, super high level. That's why I think it's important to drill down. Let's drill down with you one-on-one too and fill in the gaps. But any questions out there?
Has anyone ever heard about this concept or this different way of how you can, uh, you know, create your own, private system? Has anybody ever heard of this in this way?
Fund your life, right? That's it. Well, good guys. If you want, grab a little ebook. It's pretty short. It just is another summary of what we talked about today. And you could check this out. So you can download it at 1024wealth.com/music and do that. If you are interested in the podcast, we have Backstage Money Podcast for musicians. You can check that out. Also, the link on there is 1024wealth.com/music or any of your streaming services, podcast streaming services. You can check it out on there. But go check it out and reach out to us, guys. We're easygoing, We're gonna help you out and see what we can do for you and just understand it better. And
Elena says, first time learning about this, very interesting. Thank you all. You're
Mhm.
welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for attending, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. All right,
Thank
guys,
you.
we'll send an email out to you for the recording. You can feel free to share it around as well. And I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of the middle of your day, in the middle of the week. I know that's hard for some of you. And we will talk soon.